You're listening to BYU-Idaho Radio. I'm Nathan Lenahan, and today I'm joined by Scott Woodward. He's a professor at BYU-Idaho and the co-founder and co-host of the Church History Matters podcast. Brother Woodward, thank you so much for coming in and joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nathan.
And so before we get into stuff about the podcast, because that's really the reason why we wanted to have you on, I was just wondering if you could give us a bit of background information about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a kid who hails from West Jordan, Utah. I grew up there and then did my undergraduate work here at BYU-Idaho some 20-something years ago. And I had served a mission in Thailand, then came up here, got into seminary and institute teaching here, and then got hired after I met my marvelous wife, Sarah Swalberg. We got married in 2004. And then we got hired to teach seminary in 2005, and then headed down to Utah in Provo area, taught at Tempview and Provo High, and then I went to BYU Provo to teach in the religion department there as a visiting professor while I got my PhD there. And then a couple of years later, opened up in the religion department here at BYU-Idaho. So applied and got the job. So I've been here about 8 years.
Right. And so as a religion professor, I know there's a bunch of different subjects to teach. What's your favorite one?
Oh, what's my favorite child? You know, that's what you're really asking here. Which, by the way, I have 5 children and they're the best. But as far as subjects, man, I teach Foundations of the Restoration. I teach Jesus Christ and the Everlasting Gospel and World Religions. And those tend to be the 3 that I kind of rotate through and just love teaching those. Occasionally Eternal Family and Teachings of the Book of Mormon, but man, I don't know. I've kind of gotten pegged as a church history guy because of the podcast.
Right, that's what I think of.
But the truth is, I'm a generalist in all of the scriptures, and I just love. I don't know, man. It's hard to choose, Nathan. It depends on the moment. I guess the class I'm teaching at the time is my favorite class.
Makes sense.
I think world religions, I feel like, opens people's eyes to the beautiful people of this world. And so that's really gratifying because I see people like start to love all mankind like Scripture admonishes to do. When you start to understand people, you start to love them. So that's what I love about that class. In the Foundations of the Restoration class, what I love about that class is we deal with some of the complexities of church history, and we talk through the skills of how to handle complexity. And then in my Jesus Christ and Everlasting Gospel class, we really talk about the beginning of Scripture to the end of Scripture in just 26 lessons, where we're really, doing a deep dive into like what are the themes of Scripture that you've got to know in order to make sense of all of them. And so that's a really epic, mind-expanding class and soul-expanding. And I just get good feedback on all 3 of those classes. And so they're all my favorite, Nathan, for different reasons.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And so about the Church History Matters podcast, could you just give us a bit of background for any listeners who don't know? What is it?
Yeah, so Church History Matters. This was an idea that Casey Griffiths and I had. We were on a trip together in Nauvoo doing a little film for Scripture Central. At the time, we were the managing directors of Doctrine and Covenants Central, which is kind of a under the umbrella of Scripture Central is the easiest way to say it. So we were putting out content for the Doctrine and Covenants as we were about to start studying that in, what would that have been, 2021? So as we were riding to the airport, I said, Casey, we should do a podcast. Because when we teach Foundations of the Restoration, which he also teaches at BYU Provo, I said, we only get like 1 hour on the first vision. We get 1 hour on Book of Mormon translation with our students. We get 1 hour on the Book of Abraham. We get 1 hour on race in the priesthood and polygamy and all these challenging topics, which frankly, like a lot of people struggle with. They're complex. And when you get into complexity, sometimes you can get lost in there and some people end up losing their way. And 1 hour is good. It's better than 0 hours. But I said, what if we could just free flow? What if we could just go as long as we wanted on a particular topic? What if we did series where we had like a first vision series and we could go 1 hour and then do another one, 2 hours, and then do another one. And by the time we were done doing that, we had like 5 hours on the first vision. We interviewed Steve Harper in our final episode, like the best first vision scholar in the church. And we thought that would be valuable to put out there. The feedback we got was overwhelming, that people really needed this. There was a hunger for this, so we kept going. Book of Mormon translation, race in the priesthood, polygamy. We've done finances in the church. We've done violence in our church's history. Right now, we're wrapping up a series on science and religion, and we're about to launch one on women in the priesthood. And there's just these topics that are complex, Nathan, and they take more than just a 30-second answer to help people understand. And so, the genesis of the Church History Matters podcast was just to say, what if we could just go as long as we wanted until we felt satisfied that we had laid out some of our best thinking and interviewed some of the best scholars in the church on those topics, so that listeners could navigate these complicated topics in a way that can help them both understand it and be intellectually satisfied, but also maintain their faith.
Right. It makes sense because there are those hard topics, and I've talked to people like, oh, how come we don't talk about this in church? How come we don't talk about that? It's like, well, those are just kind of like history, little more obscure things, and we really only have 2 hours for church. We got to focus on the doctrine.
Yeah, understandable, right? If you only got 2 hours of church, let's talk about the teachings of Jesus, and let's talk about how to draw closer to Him.
And the funny thing saying about having as much time as you want on these topics, funny enough, sometimes I wish your podcasts were longer. I'm like, I could listen to them go on about this subject for a while. I think my favorite series, the two favorite ones I've had have been the temple worship and then succession in the presidency.
Oh, yes.
Those were my two favorites so far.
Oh, thank you. What did you like about those? What resonated with those with you?
Well, I think with the temple worship one, there was just so much stuff I didn't know, of course, just, history things and just learning a lot of obscure church things, which I just love. I love those type of things. And then with the succession in the presidency, I really love learning about all the breakaway churches. It's a Wikipedia rabbit hole I've gone down, just reading all these articles like, oh, well, this is the Strangites. Who's this? And then you go down and you read all about it. And it was very interesting having the representatives from a lot of those churches on the show and hearing what they had to say and what they believed. I thought that was really cool.
Awesome. Well, cool, man.
Yeah. Hopefully this isn't as hard a question as your favorite subject to teach, but have you had a favorite topic that you've covered?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, they've all been, I feel like, important, significant. That's why we chose them. We've known people who've wrestled with those topics, and so that's why we have chosen the topics we've chosen. But probably the one that we've gotten the most feedback on and that I felt like has been maybe most meaningful has been our series on race in the priesthood. Honestly, that one seems to have clarified and given people the frameworks and the critical thinking lenses to deal with what I think is the hardest church history topic of all the topics. And I mean, because with that topic, you have to deal with prophetic fallibility. You have to confront that one head on. And that's not always easy to do in our church, Nathan. And so I remember I was at an education week at BYU, and this man waited until I was done teaching for an hour, and then he came up, and he was this black man from Lehi, Utah, and he just had tears in his eyes, and he said, "Brother, I came all the way to Education Week because I wanted to say thank you for your Race in the Priesthood series," and he gave me a big hug, and we took a picture together, and he said, "I got two little black boys who are growing up in this church, and I got to help them make sense of our history and how we can still be faithful in spite of what's happened in the past." And your series helped us to see the way forward. And so that was pretty touching. When you meet people like that, it just it kind of makes it all worth it. And we went into that series honestly with a little fear and trembling, Nathan. But Deseret Book had just published a little book called "Let's Talk About Race and Priesthood" by Paul Reeve. He's the same one that the church tapped to do the Race and Priesthood Gospel Topics essay. He's a tremendous scholar. But when that was published at Deseret Book, to me that signaled a green light that we could talk about this issue with the prophetic fallibility implications that it has in it in a way that wouldn't ruffle too many feathers. And Paul's just done such great work. We had him on that series at the end there to talk about his book and how he handles this topic. And yeah, he's just, I think, the preeminent scholar on this. And so it was great to follow his good work and research and try to help people. And it's been great.
Yeah, it is great to hear these topics covered, and that story is definitely really impactful about how that podcast affected someone's life and their beliefs and their family's beliefs.
Yeah.
What other kind of feedback and stuff have you gotten from the podcast and people who have listened to it?
I think the overwhelming feedback we've gotten is, if I could summarize it, it's thanks for not dumbing down the history, but also showing us how to navigate it and maintain our faith. There is kind of this misnomer out there. There's this idea that floats out there that if you study the church history too deeply, then your faith is going to evaporate. Like you're gonna inevitably hit a faith crisis if you study church history too much. But I love Rick Turley. He's become kind of famous for saying the problem is not that people study church history too much. The problem is they study it too little. It's never the facts of church history that cause problems with people. It's improper framing, it's improper context, and it's bringing erroneous assumptions to it that really gets us into trouble. And so we try to model how to handle complex church history with the right assumptions and frameworks in order to make it through all that. So, and frankly, I think your faith, the feedback we've gotten from listeners is it showed them how to maintain their faith while still understanding the complexity. So,
what you said there, it makes me think of when you covered the Mountain Meadows Massacre and the violence in the church.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know much about the event, really, besides just that it happened, but then all the context behind it and everything really made me understand it a lot more.
Context is everything, isn't it? It's not the facts. It's you got to put those facts in the right context,
right?
And try to parse out fact from fiction first of all, but then put those facts into context. So, and by the way, speaking of Rick Turley, we had him on that series, didn't we? He's the preeminent scholar on Mountain Meadows Massacre. Him with Barbara Brown, and they did fantastic. So, glad you liked that one too.
Yeah, I mean, they're all good. They're all good. And so with future topics, you said the next one will be women in the priesthood, if that's allowed to be shared. I know that's not out yet. Okay.
Yeah, it's on its way, probably in the next couple of weeks.
That's exciting. Yeah. How do you go about choosing future topics?
Yeah, we just try to keep our finger on the pulse of things that our students are struggling with, people that we know in our own circles, the things that we hear over and over again. The gospel topics essays, honestly, are a pretty good indicator of the kinds of things that are complex and have caused people to struggle. And so we've looked to that. There's gospel topic essays on almost every topic that we've covered, and so that's part of the calculus. But, I mean, women in the priesthood, that's one, for instance, that we've seen a lot of heartburn over in the last couple of years. And, frankly, it's difficult. It's an unwieldy topic, but we're excited. We have Lisa Olson-Tate, who's one of the great church historians. She's being a co-host with that one throughout the entire series. That we've never done that before. No. And she's basically helping us with the outline, and then she's just a rigorous and marvelous scholar on this topic. And I'm learning a lot with her, and we're engaging in conversation. We're asking the hard questions, and she just has, again, the great understanding of the context historically when the church was founded all the way up to where we're at today. And we can watch the development of this topic in ways that are, it doesn't take all the angst out of it, Nathan, honestly, but it hopefully gives you some grounding on how to make sense of where we're at today and where we might go moving forward. And so it's just great to have really faithful scholars who've done their due diligence, teaching us how to kind of think through these complex issues. So we're excited for that one to come up.
Yeah, I'm excited too. That sounds like it'll be a really good listen. And as for people who listen to the podcast, do you have a moderate amount of non-member listeners, or have you heard anything about that, or is it just kind of more strictly members?
That's a great question. We have heard a smattering of non-members. We've heard that people have joined the church as a result, or that people have come back to the church after having fallen away once they've worked through some of these complex topics by listening to our podcast, and that blows us away. We didn't expect that, but I recently heard of someone who had issues with the church finances, and that's why he was out of the church, because of church financial issues and some misunderstandings that he had about that. And he made a snide remark to his brother-in-law at a family gathering over the holidays, and brother-in-law said, I can't explain all this to you exactly, but here's a podcast I've been listening to that might be helpful. And to his credit, this guy started listening to our series on church finances, and anyway, his brother-in-law reached out to us and said, hey, I just want you to know that my brother-in-law, who'd left the church over church financial issues, is now back in the church and attending the temple, and it's in large measure due to him being able to work through the complexities of church finances by listening to your series on that. And so I just wanted to give you guys a shout out. And that warms our heart like crazy, man. Yeah, like we didn't expect that to happen, but that's the point, right? That's why we started the podcast, was because there are misunderstandings. Anytime you get a complex topic, the chances for misunderstanding go way up, right? Mm-hmm. And so when there are misunderstandings there that cause people to stumble, like we find that absolutely unfortunate. I will respect anyone's journey, right? Like, especially adults. It's like, hey, live your life. If you want to leave the church or stay in the church, like, that's up to you. But it would pain me, Nathan, and it does pain me when people leave the church over stupid stuff, over stuff that is a misunderstanding of the history, right? And so when people work through that with the right lenses, the right context, the right framing, and they come back to the church, like, that's amazing. We did not expect that. We hope to help people think through things carefully so that they wouldn't leave, or at least leave with their eyes wide open to what they're actually leaving. Mm-hmm. But we didn't expect people to come back to the church, but we've heard a couple stories like that. So that warms our heart a lot.
And last, do you guys have any future hopes or goals or plans for the podcast? Like, what do you hope to see come from it or want to improve on it?
Yeah, we haven't thought that far ahead. Our hopes, our goals is that those who need these series will hear them. That's it. We don't have any grandiose like numbers as to how many people, we want to hit this benchmark of this many people listening to our podcast. Like, our goals are modest. We want people who need these topics, who are in the midst of complexity, or who want to get on the front end of before they enter into those complexities, like to be, armed intellectually, at least with the right frameworks and assumptions to handle these difficult topics. Like, if we can be helpful to people who need it, like that, that's our goal. That, honestly, like, let's help people navigate complex church history topics. And if people don't need the podcast, then that's great. But we hope that all those who do need it listen.
Yeah, that's great. Brother Woodward, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us about this and just sharing it with everybody.
Yeah, my pleasure, Nathan. Thanks for having me, man.